Hi, everyone. Welcome to Awkward Devs call number 123. Um, I'll share the agenda in the chat here. We don't have a ton of things on the agenda today. Um, just some updates on the merge, updates on the December fork, and then there were a couple EIPs that we hadn't had time to discuss for the past couple calls, and I think we'll probably be able to get over them today. So first on the merge side, Mikael or Danny couldn't join the call because they're both traveling. I've seen that like various client teams have started working on implementing EIP 3675 as well as the merge API. I don't know if teams just want to share generally where they're at right now with supporting the execution side of the merge.
Hey, this is Justin Florentine from Besu. We are currently in testing on that. That's one of the things that's going on for our on-site folks. I believe we've had success interoperating with Geth and Besu as far as Teku is concerned. Not sure if anybody from the Teku team is on.
So Teku has interrupt with Geth and Besu. That's yeah.
Yes, that's a better way to phrase that. Thank you.
Okay, got it. Thanks. Yeah.
In Nethermind, we are passing test vectors provided by Marius, and we are still have some work to do, and we want to run Nethermind with one of consensus clients soon. So yeah, that is the plan.
Cool.
Yeah, for Geth.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've implemented the spec and I created some test vectors for the other teams to use for helping them implement it. I haven't started looking into consensus layer client yet, so I don't know with whom we interop right now, but I think it's Teku and Lighthouse. Things are chugging along.
I don't see Peter in the chat, but it seems he has also made some progress on the sync algorithm, to be confirmed. But yeah, looks like that.
Cool. And I think, did I see Andrew? Yeah, Andrew, has there been any update on Aragon?
Sorry, was it about the merge?
Yes.
No, sorry, no update. No, we still have to actually to start working on it in earnest.
Got it. And I see Peter just joined. Peter, right before you joined, Marius was, Guillaume was saying there might have been some progress on the sync for the merge. I don't know if you had any updates you wanted to share there.
Yes, it's done.
Wow. Love it.
So essentially just a very, very quick update. We can discuss the merge next week. I mean the sync stuff details, but the only update is that now Geth, I mean it's not merged obviously, and all the disclaimers about bugs and whatnot, but essentially what is functional is that an E2 client can announce a new header, arbitrarily many or few or whatever, and Geth will actually do a full reverse header sync to that. So from beginning from that announced header up to the Genesis, and then backfill it, whether it's full sync or snap sync, whatever. And the whole thing works, and you can, the E2 client can keep announcing new headers, and Geth will just keep switching. And if the E2 client announces a fork, then Geth will switch, and pretty much, yeah.
That's awesome. I know Felix had a sync spec that he shared like a call or two ago. Have there been any changes to that, or is that basically what you implemented?
I know. I basically implemented a much simpler approach that I've been working on for the past 3 months. Felix, what Felix shared, that you can essentially these two clients and each one clients can optimize a lot of things if you take into consideration finalizations and whatnot.
Right.
But as for me, I went with a really simple approach where there's no assumptions and there's almost no requirement from ETH2 side. I mean, ETH2 client just gives us the new header and that's enough. We don't care about anything. If you have other API calls, maybe you can optimize it, but my goal kind of was to make the bare bone thing work solidly, and then if via a few other API calls we can make it a bit nicer, it's okay. But
got it. Yeah, that's great. There's two questions in the chat. One, do you have a PR number? And two, how long does a reverse sync roughly take?
Okay, PR number, I just opened a PR against Marius's thing. The problem is that it entails insane overhauls of gets, internals, and request ID handling and everything. So it's a 5,000 line PR. Good luck. As for how long it takes, I mean, I tried it on mainnet yesterday, and downloading all these reverse headers took maybe 20 minutes. After which you just start backfilling at them like normal SnapSync would do or title for sync. Just obviously you don't need to download the headers anymore because you already have them. So my expectation is that, I mean, synchronization will take the same amount of time it takes currently. There's nothing specifically in there that will make it faster or slower.
Nice. Yeah, that's really cool. Anyone else have questions on that? Okay. Anyone else had just general updates they wanted to share about the merge, or questions that they have, or problems they've come across? Okay. Yeah, so I guess people can expect more progress on that in the coming weeks, but it's good to see all the teams are kind of starting to make pretty serious progress. So next thing on the agenda was basically the December fork. So on the last call, we discussed a bunch of small EIPs, and because they were small and some of them kind of added a lot of value immediately, we wondered, should we have these in a December fork alongside with the difficulty bomb? The challenge there being that if we do introduce another fork, another EIP in a December fork, we'll actually need to fork all of the testnets rather than just mainnet, because the difficulty bomb is only on mainnet. And that would add a lot of overhead and require client releases to be ready quite soon. So I reached out to all the client teams in the past 2 weeks to basically see what they thought about it. And basically everyone agreed, or at least 3 out of the 4 teams, preferred not doing anything except from the difficulty bomb. One of the team was just pretty much indifferent. I know there were some issues raised about DOS vectors for 3860 with the init code. The client teams that were most affected felt that they could kind of mitigate those issues, and that it wasn't the end of the world if this EIP didn't make it in until after the merge. So I guess, first of all, I just want to leave the space. Does any client team has any client team just changed their mind on that, or does anyone still feel strongly we should push for a December fork that has more than the difficulty bomb? Okay.
Nothing's changed on the Besu team.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, so if anyone feels, or if no one feels really strongly about that, then I think the next step, just to provide clarity to people, would be to create an upgrade for December and name it. So I think Axic had proposed Aero Glacier as a name, just because we used Muir Glacier last time for the difficulty bomb only upgrade, and also because people have started associating Shanghai with, you know, a fork that will have a bunch of new features in it. So I think it allows us to just keep talking about Shanghai, even though the date is obviously not set, but also just highlight that there is something happening in December. And we should create just an EIP there to delay the difficulty bomb. It's probably still early to decide by how much we want to push back the difficulty bomb. But I think we basically need to do so in the next month, so that towards the end of October, we have a value that's been updated across all of the clients. And then 2 weeks later, we can have a client release mid-November with the actual fork block and EIP implemented, so that people have a couple weeks to upgrade before the bomb goes off. So I'm happy to create kind of the spec for the upgrade, and to also create the placeholder EIP and you know, talk about different values by which we could push the difficulty bomb. I think we'll know better in the next 2-3 weeks, you know, how many months we want to push it by. So yeah, we can discuss that then. Yeah, does this generally make sense to people? Do people have strong oppositions to it? Otherwise, I'm happy to go ahead and do this. Okay, no one objecting. That's good. So okay, by the next core dev call, I'll have all of this so we can properly review it. And one final comment I'll highlight is TJ Rush said that if we do just a difficulty bomb only fork in December, it might help extend Open Ethereum's end of life, where a lot of people would be able to just add simple support for that. And because it doesn't require much additional testing and whatnot, it's quite an easy change. So it'll also give an extra couple months to everyone who's still transitioning out of Open Ethereum. Yeah, if we go that path. Cool. So that was quick, 17 minutes. The two big things on the agenda are basically done. We had three other EIPs that we've just haven't had the time to discuss over the past couple calls. So we can run through them now. First was EIP 3436. This is about the clique blockchain, the clique block choice rule. I think Dano, you're on the call. Yes, Dano, you're on the call. Do you want to give us some context and just kind of share where we're at with this?
Yeah, I brought this up back in March, and there was promise to take some of the discussion to the Ethereum magicians. I got only one response, and I responded to that reply, and it's basically gone quiet. But the big impact of this is, earlier in the year, the Goerli network had a couple of natural halts because of the way that clients can choose which blocks to follow when they detect a fork. That all the validators can split into basically two groups. So what this EIP is doing is establishing rules when you see two forks, a priority list of how to choose which one to go to. And right now, the only rule that is universally implemented is the first rule, which is, of course, pick the heaviest chain. The second rule would be to pick the shortest chain. That's a rule that Geth implements, and that's outside the spec. So this EIP would enshrine that in the spec. But then to ensure that when you see a series of forks, because it's possible still with that rule to have two equal length forks that could still halt the system. So that's the point of the third block, which is to look at the current epoch of the last 3,000 blocks, which everyone who does clique should be fully aware of, and pick the one, I think I've gone back and forth on it, but basically the one that, as it's currently written, whose validator has least recently had an intern block assignment, and that's designed to maximize intern block assignments. And there's a formula that I think when people read it, they miss to determine what that step 3 means. And then the last one, of course, if there's still a tie after all of that, because the least recent intern block producer produced 2 blocks on that chain, or is on 2 chains producing blocks, is to choose the one with the lowest hash. And the hash is, of course, the last step to present a hash race between different clients. So up to step 3, you're narrowing on a specific validator whose block you should choose, and then you pick the one with the lowest hash in the event that they're producing multiple hashes. So if the clients following clique were to implement this, these natural halts would not be occurring, because in the presence of a fork, the clients would have a rule as to which one to go down if they're aware of the fork. If it's a full net split, I mean, you can't solve that problem. But if the split comes back together, you're not going to stay on separate forks if we follow this. So this is something I would like to see the clients implement. And so I really need, I think I've got a PR ready for Basic to go in once this is approved. So really just Aragon and Geth and Nethermind would need to give feedback on this before it would be adopted, would be my thought.
Thanks for the context. Thomas has a comment in the chat saying that they're thinking about implementing this for the merge because it would simplify the merge testing on clique. Anyone else have thoughts?
Yeah, sorry, my mind's a bit hazy about this. I recall starting to implement this at one point, and there was some snag about it, which I don't recall right now. Do you know directly what are the hidden, if there is any hidden pitfall or snag in this proposal?
So when you decide which in your fork choice detection logic, you're going to need to have the status of the current clique epoch of who the validators are and what their slot assignments are, basically. With that, the clique, the mod of the validators in the current block. So when you do that choice, you're going to need to plumb that information through, and that's probably where the hard part is. That's where the hardest part of Basic is plumbing that logic into the fork detection logic. And because Basic does object-oriented, we just have multiple subclasses. So when we need to switch out for plain old proof of work, we can keep the proof of work one, and then we can put the fancy clique fork choice rules in. So if you don't have pluggable architecture there, you're going to need to have some flags to say, well, this is a POW chain, don't do these checks. So those are, I think where the only real bumps are going to be.
So I think I remember now the catch was that there is no fork choice rules per consensus engine. There's only a global fork choice rule. But with the changes that Gary made for the new consensus engines for the merge, I think he refactored it so we have a pluggable consensus engine with its own fork choice rule. Right. So, and with that, it will be much easier to adapt your proposal.
Cool. Good to hear. So, unless I'm hearing objections, I'll clean up my patch on Besu and try and get it in for the next major release. So, because another thing about this is compatible with people without it. It's just we don't get the real value until the majority of the validators implement these fork choice rules.
Cool. So I guess, does it make sense? It seems like, I don't know, Geth can implement it. You can implement it in Besu. Nethermind is thinking about doing it. So it seems like people want to implement this. I'm not sure how this gets accepted into the clique spec, because clique itself is another EIP. So I guess I'm not sure what's the process to make this part of the spec, and also the type of delay around that, given that people can just implement it when they want. So yeah, Dano, do you have a feeling for what you would want the next official step to be here?
It's hard to say because Micah's not big on amending previous EIPs. So we could put a reference in the EIP of clique saying, please use this for the fork choice rule, but not actually merge it into the clique EIP. I think the people who really care about the EIP process aren't on a call quite right now.
Okay.
But I think probably the thing to do is to move it into like a final call and leave it there until we have everyone's implementations and then close it off.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. So, okay, let's move this to last call and yeah, keep track of the different clients who implement it, and we'll move it to final once basically the 4 clients here have implemented.
So I would like to mention one thing here. When the proposal was originally proposed, it was under the networking type. Now it has been moved from networking to core because it was believed that it's going to bring some of the consensus changes for clique part. I'm wondering if that would be following the usual core EIP's process for getting implemented, maybe a part of the upcoming upgrade.
Well, because it's a clique, it's not going to be
on the mainnet.
Yeah.
Got it.
And it's very compatible. It's not a hard fork. It would be more equivalent to a soft fork because you can come onto a network and not have this implemented and for the most part still participate. So you're not going to be too surprised. It might take a while for you to figure out what the real live chain is, but eventually you'll figure it out.
Sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, there's a question about like, not sure if this should be a core EIP. Dano, do you know off the top of your head if the clique EIP itself is a core EIP?
No, I don't. Let me look it up.
Okay. But I guess regardless of the actual category, I think it makes sense to move it to last call now, and then move it to final once clients have implemented it. Does anyone object to that? Okay. Yeah. I know.
225 is the clique EIP, and that is core. So.
Okay. We can discuss this offline if people feel very strongly about it, but it seems like intuitively the extension to clique should also be core if the actual clique EIP is core. But I'm not willing to die on that hill. And if people are, then we should just discuss this on the Discord.
Just to give some more context, it was discussed in the last EIP meeting, so maybe the recording of that might help. We were discussing about networking proposals with Felix, Micah, and then generally it was decided that it should not be a part of networking EIP and should be moved to core EIP. So this is a recent change, and yeah, we can follow the discussion there.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, thank you, Dano. We had another one. Micah's not on the call, and I think this was his, but it was around EIP 2976, the type transactions over gossip. I don't know if anyone else had context here. Otherwise, we can talk about it another time.
Yeah, that is another networking proposal because in the last meeting we were discussing about cleanup of that particular category. So this was moved to last call, and the last call period is ending on October 6th. So if people have any question, comment, concern, this is the time before it gets moved to the final status. We just wanted to let everyone know about it. This is networking proposal is going to be final soon.
Okay. So yes, please review that. So it's about sending type transactions over the gossip network. Okay, great. And then, Andrew, sorry, you have your hand raised.
So I have a question about EIP 2976. Is it just a clarification of the existing practice, or is it a change?
Does anyone on the call know?
I am wondering the same thing. And basically, whenever we send anything over the network, we have an RLP packet. It's RLP. So if we send a transaction, it's going to be inside of an RLP list. And yeah, I don't really. I think it's just a clarification. I don't think this changes anything.
Yeah, we just had Micah join. So Micah, we're talking about your EIP 2976, and people are wondering, does this actually change any behavior, or does it clarify the existing behavior? and if you are speaking, oh, I believe it is already implemented, just never merged. Okay, we can give you a couple minutes, but it seems like, yeah, Martin and Thomas, you are right with this.
But in that, so most of the dev peer-to-peer specification do not live in the EAPS repo, but live in the dev peer-to-peer specification. I might be wrong about this, but
yes. So I wrote an EIP for it back when 2718 was written, and it just never made it in, and it wasn't clear at the time whether we wanted to actually use the EIPs for networking specs, because seems like they generally aren't used, other than just kind of ad hoc at the end after everything's already merged. Someone goes and writes an EIP that just for the sake of it. I recently talked to Felix, and he would like to continue to use the EIP process and try to be a little bit more diligent about it. So when in the future, when networking specs go through, it would go through the standard EIP process, and we'd have it on all core devs call and talk about it and all that. But that's going forward. This EIP was before we came to that agreement, and so it kind of just sat there, and it should mirror what everybody's implemented. If it doesn't, then that's a problem. We should fix it.
Andrew?
Yeah, just one comment only slightly related to this EIP, because for type transactions, it's actually how it currently works, even on the consensus level. The EIP itself says that type transaction should be prepended with the transaction type byte, and then the payload follows, and the payload for existing transactions is RLP, and that works for calculating transaction route. But in the block, I think it's additionally this thing is additionally wrapped as an RLP array. So there was this kind of gray area, which was not exactly specified by EIP 2718, whether to wrap this additionally as an RLP into an RLP array or not. And I believe there were some issues on the networking level also related to this ambiguity, whether to wrap it additionally or not. So to my mind, it's good that we clarify it, but we should probably describe what most clients already do rather than introduce changes.
How it goes into a block should be specified somewhere. I'm looking right now to see if I remember where. It was either in the 2718 itself or in the like 2930 and 1559. But that should be specified somewhere. I know we wrote it down at some point.
Well, where was it? Just a moment. I think it was not, but it does. Okay, it doesn't matter too much. I think we followed guest implementation, but I'm sure there was a decision somewhere whether to wrap it in the byte array or not.
Yeah, so in 2718, in the specification section, under the transactions subheading or the receipts subheading, that first sentence specifies how the Patricia tree should be calculated.
Yeah, that's right. That is specified. But when you consider block body, it is this the RLP, the transaction RLP prefixed by the transaction type is additionally wrapped into RLP byte array, and that I don't think that was specified in the for block bodies.
Yes, that's in 2976. You are correct. That is not in 2718.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for 2976, like I said, if the clients can just review it, make sure it matches with your implementations, it should. I've talked to Felix about it. I believe Felix thinks it matches the Geth implementation. So if it just matches everybody's implementation, we can just merge it as final and be done.
Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button. And do clients feel like that's something they can do in the next week? Just because the last call period is supposed to end on October 6th. Is it fine if we, just because we haven't discussed this the past 2 or 3 calls, I think when it's been on the agenda, do people want more time to just look at this, or is it trivial to do?
I think it should be sufficient, given that this is already de facto.
Okay, cool. So yeah, let's move it to final on October 6th, assuming nobody in the meantime has comments about it. Great. And then the last thing we had on the agenda is EIP 3607. Basically, this was the one rejecting transactions from senders which already have deployed code associated with the address. It's already been merged in Geth. And Andrew was asking if we can move this to final so that we can also add it to the yellow paper and make it part of the formal specification.
So yeah, I believe it's also implemented in Nethermind already.
Great. How about Besu and Aragon?
In Aragon, it's not yet implemented, but we can implement it. It's not a problem.
And Besu?
I'm unfamiliar with this one. I'd have to get back to you.
Okay. So it should be a small change. And I have Micah in the chat saying we should move it to review. So this is kind of good timing. So I think we can definitely move it to review like now. So after the call today, if Marius Marius, you're the only one on the call, so I'm going to pick on you. If you want to move it to review, then basically we can move it to last call on the next call once everybody's implemented it, and then it'll go to final. So I suspect in like the next couple of weeks we can get it to final. And also for the yellow paper, I feel like once it's in last call, maybe you can just open a PR against the yellow paper and we can just merge it once it's in final. Does that make sense, Andrew?
There is already a PR, so
okay.
Happy to merge it when it is in last call.
Cool. So I'll just add that to the agenda also on the next call, so we remember to follow up on it. And that's everything we had on today's agenda. Was there anything else anyone wanted to bring up?
I just wanted to mention about one of the, actually 2 of the proposals that were discussed in the previous call, I suppose, that were networking proposals. The number is 2364 and 2464. These were in draft, now have been moved to stagnant by the EIP bot. Now, actually, we are working towards cleanup of the repositories, and a lot of proposals which were not active for over 6 month period of time, they have been moved to stagnant status by the bot. So I just wanted to let all the EIP authors know that if your proposal has been moved to stagnant and you still want to pursue that, you might have to create a pull request again. But for these 2 particular proposals, we need to get this to move to review status so we can move it forward. And I know this is not active right now, but that is required for proposal 2481, which is like E66, and we cannot make it final unless we move the proposals which needs to be final before that. So if I may request the author. Sorry?
Are the two proposals that are like stagnant, basically ETH64 and ETH65? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. So what needs to be done?
So I made a pull request, but in my pull request, it was proposed to move from draft to review.
Yeah.
But now that it has already been moved to stagnant, so either the author has to make a new pull request, or I am happy to create one, but it might require approval of the author.
Right. And so Peter is the author on those two.
Right.
So basically what we need is a pull request that's approved by Peter to move it from stagnant to review. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Good luck.
Oh, did you say something, Peter? Sorry.
I was just trolling people. Good luck getting those reviews.
Sorry, I didn't get that. It's like you're very far from the mic.
Never mind. I was just trolling people.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay. So yeah, if you can just either open the pull request or Pooja if you want to open them, and Peter just approves them, so we can move those two to review, and then we can actually move, we can move ETH66 to final.
Sounds good.
Cool. Anything else anyone wanted to bring up? Okay. Well, short call. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, I will see you all in 2 weeks, and looking forward to more progress on the merge in the coming weeks.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Nice weekend.
Bye-bye.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.